done. This next debate is going to be a very educational and jam-packed debate. So our next debate is going to be C versus Jordan on, does indeterminism have a more robust possibility of being true when compared to determinism? Before their debate, they're going to have a 20-minute section to clarify terms, basically, because this is going to be, these two individuals are highly intellectual, and this debate is going to be very complex. So it's very necessary that we define terms and make sure the audience is on board with what they're about to discuss. So let's get started with that. Then we'll talk about the format after. So AR, can you do 20 minutes on TikTok in regards to the timer thing?
I don't even know. Let me try. I'll
I know you can do.
Yes, we can. Okay, we got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me know when do you want me to start the timer, or if you want to wait until they say the first word.
Yeah, whatever you guys say your first word. 20 minutes of just clarifying the terms, and then we'll get into the actual debate.
Okay. Okay. I guess am I starting? Is it? I don't remember what.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, go ahead, Jordan. Go ahead. Anyone?
Conversation. There's no real.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can start with
the semantics. Go ahead.
start with indeterminism, and then I'll do determinism maybe, and then we can move into metaphysics.
Actually, I'm gonna do determinism if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Because indeterminism is kind of just the negation, right?
It's true. It's true.
So, there's one thing I want to say is there's no, absolute right way to use a term. Language is bendy, right? We can use it for a lot of different things. But in the philosophical literature, especially analytic philosophy, determinism has a pretty strict meaning, right? Can I get on the...
Big screen?
Yeah. See if this works.
Oh, AR, you got the background, right? You need me to send it to you, or?
There we go. So.
You there, AR?
I'm on it.
There we go. So causal determinism is, roughly speaking, the idea that every event is necessitated. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sure. That's cool. Is necessitated by antecedent events and conditions, together with the laws of nature. Now, what the hell does that actually mean, right? So what that means is that given some initial conditions and a set of laws of nature, right, that things are going to be fixed from that point on, right? And I've got some visual. Oh wait, here we go. Can I zoom in on this? Oh no. So I don't know if you guys can see that because I can't zoom in. So if you guys can see, this is kind of a messy rig here, but what you've got is on the top there, you see, kind of the starting place, right? Those are the initial conditions, and you have a straight arrow, right? And that's just supposed to represent that given those initial conditions, the laws of nature are going to fix every world state, right, that follows that, right? From beginning to, end, if there is such a thing. Where indeterminism is going to be any world, an indeterministic world is going to be a world where there's any kind of openness to the future, right? Even if, theoretically, even if there were only two possible ways the world could turn out, that would, in the absolute minimum sense, be an indeterministic world, right? I think a lot of people think about indeterminism in that right area where you kind of have these branches, right? I tend to think of it as this kind of fuzzy, structured thing, right? Um, the important thing to remember is that determinism asks that things be, that what it entails is that there's one possible future and that it could not turn out otherwise, right? That the future is fixed by the past and the laws of nature.
I like to say causality usually, but yeah, laws of nature works in this case. We can definitely, I think that's totally fair.
So you agree with the diagram and the way he's explaining it?
Well, I mean, I had already seen it. He gave me the PowerPoint to this earlier, and obviously, like, I recognize that this is a very specific version of determinism. Like, specifically, this is hard determinism. And then, of course, we have different versions of determinism. We have, compatibilism. We have soft compatibilism. We have semi-compatibilism. We have narrow incompatibilism. We have evolutionism. So all of those are actually within. And then, of course, we also have the Valerian model, which actually takes both, right? It's both indeterminism and determinism in one two-stage model. So what he's doing here is we're trying not to make it too complex. And so we're agreeing to do this as a definition, but like obviously we both recognize that this isn't
It's not the only way to understand determinism.
yeah,
but
like
it is
really
the most clean. It's the most clean, right?
And we're gonna go with it.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that this is the way that this is the kind of working definition in analytic philosophy on this question. And another thing that's an important thing to point out is that at least initially we're not talking about free will. Whether determinism or indeterminism holds is distinct from the free will question. They're related, they're connected, right? But they're not the same question because it's compatibilists, right? What compatibilists argue, right, is that free will is compatible with determinism.
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
quick question.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is this well, to both Jordan and C, the determinism in question in terms of what is being defined as the agreed upon definition is that there's only one
possible future,
possible next state of affairs from the antecedent
right?
affairs.
Right.
Yeah. We're sort of just going to be analyzing and working through the question together. This is going to be less of a debate per se and more of two philosophers sitting down and really talking through determinism and indeterminism. I'm sorry if that's not what you guys are used to, but
Oh no,
Well,
already going to be the vibes.
Are there not opening questions or something? I mean, opening statements.
yeah, there will be. So the
Yeah.
structure will be a bit different. They're gonna have like 6-minute openers, and then there's gonna be like sections of open cross examination. But yeah, like 2 6-minute openers, and then like 14 section 1, 14-minute section 2, 14-minute section 3, and 5-minute closers. And I'm pretty sure C and Jordan, you guys determined like how you're gonna divide those sections up, like what you're gonna cover for each of them.
Yeah,
Right.
we have like relative sections and questions that we both worked on together that we want to work through, and I think it should be fun. It's going to be a great debate. Well, it's not really a debate, but it's going to be fun for
A
us.
critical discussion.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yep.
All right, so we got determinism is agreed upon. So
Yeah.
indeterminism that's agreed upon is just there's there's more than one next possible set of affairs, right?
Right. Exactly.
All right. Now what else? What else do we need to agree on?
That's the main thing. I mean, free will. We will talk about free will at the very last section.
Yes, the last section we'll move on.
So it might be worth defining those terms now. We can kind of refer back to them later.
Sure.
So like I said, compatibilism is just the view that free will is compatible with determinism of exactly this kind of model, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're reading like a philosophy paper, outside of like a philosophy paper, I can't tell you, but if you're reading a philosophy paper, almost definitely when they say they're a compatibilist, what they mean is that even though there's only one possible future, you can still have free will.
Mhm.
That's
I
compatibilist.
just to clarify, for the audience, and just to clarify, if
Mhm.
this is what you also mean by what you said, those compatibilists view what they're trying to say is that even though there's only one possible state of affairs that comes next, it's the one that I want, and because it's the one that I want, it's free. Is that
No,
what I'm?
Well, there's different. There's
that's
different.
fine.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. See.
Okay, so imagine that the process when it initially like begins, that is technically indeterminate, and then as soon as the process begins, there are issues with the framework. So you have all of this presup and all of this perception that causes a deterministic framework. So you have science, you have all of this stuff, physics, and all of that is going to influence the way that the individual responds to the stimuli. So when they respond, they're responding through a filter of perception. You're not responding senselessly to data. You're responding through a wall of perception with all of these built-in presup. And when that happens, it's almost triggering this event where you both try to make decisions with rational process, but you are living within a deterministic framework.
So there's another way to think about it is that there's different theories of what makes it compatible, what counts as a free choice versus a not free choice, right? So the old school compatibilist was
that
like,
is what is most important, is that you have a sliver of choice within compatibilism.
Well, it's just so the way that like the classical compatibilists talk about it is that if you're doing what you want, it's free. Now, there's as a lot of people recognized, there's issues with that. So the later kind of compatibilisms is you've got second order desires. That's one account. You've got character based accounts. So like if it's in line with your character, it counts as free. Another account is called reason responsiveness. So the idea is that if you're responsive to reasons, then what you do counts as free.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's the classical. That's good. That's good too. We don't have to talk about all of the other versions. There's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, those are the big three.
Let's try to wrap it up.
Okay. Sorry, guys. We'll move on from definitions into opening statements. You can open whenever you want.
Wait, is that everything? You guys can use the time.
I was gonna do a metaphysical definition too, but I feel like if the audience feels like they understand that determinism is a branch of metaphysics and they understand what that entails and that means, then we can definitely move on. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think the definition of metaphysics is relevant to this. Yeah, I think it makes sense what you guys defined so far.
Okay.
Are you guys ready to move on to opening statements and get it started?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, okay. And yeah, we can do that. I guess AR. I would say Jordan. Honestly, you can. Oh yeah. Okay, we're gonna need a 6-minute timer. But I was gonna say like the timer was at 6:49 anyway. But yeah, let's get a 6-minute timer on them, and yeah, we can get started with.
Yeah, I mean, well, 6-minute timer on Jordan, right?
Yeah. He can do
And
his opening statement.
that's for the opener.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. For Jordan. All right. You want me to put them on the screens, like both of them?
Oh no, we could just keep it like this with the topic, and then yeah, and they can debate from there. Unless do you guys have a preference, or are you guys?
I don't need the screen until we start talking about arguments. So I've got the arguments on screen
Okay.
too. So for anybody who might be able to see it, at least.
Then this will work.
Just tell me when.
Okay, it starts whenever you say your first word.
Okay. So I want to frame this argument, right, or this position, as leaving certain ideas behind. I think that the problem with determinism is that by its nature, it introduces law talk, necessity talk, and that these words and the kind of intuitions that they pump, by their very nature, give people theistic intuitions, and they give ground to the theists to grab onto. I suggest that we instead leave these past comforts behind, that they were for people who were, as Dewey says, on a quest for certainty. But that what we've realized is that we don't need perfection. We don't need absolute knowledge. That good enough is good enough. Okay? So I'll be presenting a few different arguments. The key thing to actually, I might need this screen for this, or it might be helpful here. One thing to understand is that when we talk about laws, right, that there are actually multiple accounts of what I call order makers. And laws are only one possible account of order makers. That what we are after is some theory that would explain why, both in terms of scientific use, in terms of practical thought, and in terms of metaphysics, why the world is stable, right? Why the world is orderly enough for us to predict it, right? Or what I call being predictively tractable, right? And that once we consider the possibilities, and once we consider the problems that come with any kind of necessity being entailed by a theory, we'll see that not only is determinism unnecessary, it has, relative to indeterminism, has a much, much higher epistemic burden and metaphysical burden. That it's epistemically and metaphysically heavy, right? And that indeterminism is going to be the lighter case and the more practical one. So I'll cede my time to C.
Okay. With that, we can move on to C's opening statement. That will be 6 minutes. And we can start your timer in a sec whenever you say your...
You said C, right? C is next, right? So hold on.
Yeah.
You want me to put C on the big screen, or what are we doing here?
Let's put you back on the big screen, and then
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay, got it.
and if you need it, see if you need the big screen, let us know, and we'll put you on the big screen.
You're all good. I had like a tiny little picture that I added to the slide, but I honestly I don't actually need it. It was mostly just for the audience to like, I guess, have like a visual representation of what determinism and indeterminism encompasses, and all the different terms that sort of fall under that umbrella. Anyway,
Right. Yeah.
you guys can start whenever you want.
Whenever you say your first word.
Okay. If our choices are in fact not truly determined by previous causes or like eternal ones, I just want to keep that in mind, just because obviously I believe that the universe is eternal. So within like my view or my frame, like I think it should be included. So in the case of the universe, if they are indeed random, though, I feel like this actually undermines the notion of this like supposed moral responsibility that comes along with this slice of free will that the randomness of indeterminism provides. Like for me, that's what is, I think, a bit confusing, because I feel like if one wishes to engage with the concept and you say, okay, let's put free will to the side, which I understand doing, but I also feel like when you do that, you remove moral culpability to like some extent, because I don't know, an action or a choice, if truly random, it's hard to see how it could be attributed to an agent as a result of their will. Like, after all, how would you know? It's supposed to be random. I guess I would also argue that if our choices are random, we like obviously can't be held responsible. Like, I'm not sure. Like, obviously, I recognize you can't be held responsible in determinism either. Like, I don't have a problem with that. That in itself is a non-issue. I feel like the problem is that we're trying to have a system with randomness as a means to have some agency, and yet that agency means nothing for like choice. So I guess I don't really understand the result or like the true conclusion of what indeterminism is really trying to achieve with what it's saying. So if our actions are determined, like, can we truly be said to have made a choice? And if they are random, can we be held responsible with this supposed free will, slice of free will? I guess I also have a luck objection. Like, furthermore, like just because of libertarianism, I feel like, I mean, obviously within libertarianism, it's a subsect of indeterminism, and my main issue with it is that it doesn't acknowledge intersectionality. Like, the whole idea of the randomness, it doesn't take into account like when others quote unquote roll that dice, like they're in a different place intersectionality wise. So I feel like that randomness also isn't accounting for that, whereas like determinism is directly accounting for that as a causality. The causality of the effect of all of these intersectionalities affects the person due to the stimuli. But if you have a random system, I don't really understand how that can play out the same way. Anyway, those are sort of like my opening qualms with the theory, and we can sort of investigate those together, and you can break down how you really feel about that. Anyway, that's it. Gonna cede my time.
Okay, and with that, that will be the end of her opening statement. Now we're going into like the open cross-examination periods. So the first section of open cross-examination will be 14 minutes. So you guys will get 14 minutes, and like, what's going to be the topic for this section?
Just whether indeterminism is true.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
sorry, not sorry. Whether sorry, it was something else, wasn't it? See, didn't you write it down?
Oh, I did write down our little questions in our sections, if that's what you're
Yeah,
asking.
just
Uh,
about the main core of the arguments, right? That about whether we're justified in believing determinism.
Okay.
yeah. You wanted to focus on a couple different things. So even if indeterminism is true, does it support the inability of being otherwise? That's one
Hey,
we
are we
definitely
starting?
Um,
yeah, sure. I mean, we're sort of just gonna let it flow.
I got it.
Cool.
Hmm?
So we can start with that one, or we can start with does indeterminism or determinism hold? Like out of the two definitions that we just gave, or and also the opening statements with like our issues with determinism versus indeterminism. How do we feel about their claim holding? Do they have a relatively robust claim? Like, how are you feeling about that right now?
Okay, so first, yeah, I'm actually going to address her opening statements later because that's when they're going to be the most relevant. So I'm just going to focus right now on this kind of indeterminism versus determinism thing, right? So can I get the screen, please? So as I was saying before, as in the opening statements, what we've got here is a, a, a non-exhaustive account, different accounts of what I'm calling order makers, right? Um, and only the that laws hold necessarily, and that's going to come in a couple of different flavors. One where we call it necessitarianism, where they hold it something like across all possible worlds, and not a logical necessity, okay, which is just going to hold within a particular world, right? Now there are options where they have both deterministic and indeterministic interpretations, but you would have to one establish the deterministic version is true, and then deal with the kinds of problems that those have. And I'll get into my kind of first argument, right? So one issue is that actually I'm going to skip this one. One issue is that for determinism to be true, there can't be any ontic vagueness. What do I mean by ontic vagueness? Right? That you can think of ontic vagueness as being the opposite of being sharp and determinate, right? Crisp, right? That everything is in the world and all its objects are in definite states, right? If there's any kind of indeterminacy in the state, right, the world state, the issue is that will introduce indeterminacy even to deterministic laws, right? So one thing that a determinist will have to show is that there is no ontic vagueness, that we live in an ontically crisp world. So that's kind of my kind of opening argument here.
For sure. I've definitely like considered this before. I think I've mentioned this author to you before, but if you want to read Daniel Dennett or like Russin or like Merleau-Ponty, they all sort of explore this same kind of thing where we're talking about sense data analyzing that sense data, and what does that really mean, because it's not being done in a vacuum. And obviously that makes it so that the empirical process, right, isn't quote unquote perfect. And yes, of course there's issues with it, but I feel like even if we were to like recognize that like potentially we're not getting the best data and we could be missing differences in the data, or like, I do get that, but I feel like it makes the argument extra complex because I don't know. I feel like it maybe it doesn't even matter. Like, obviously, we still need to use sense data to move forward and make scientific models, regardless of whether they're not 100% perfect, right? You're free to respond whenever. Jordan, have you gone?
Bro, I put you on mute because you had a lot of background noise, but you can unmute yourself.
Doing good, Jordan? You there? All right, you're on mute, but like you can unmute.
Okay, I can move on to, I guess, the next. Hold on, let me look at his slide and see if I can try to figure out what he's talking about.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
There you go,
Yeah,
bro.
we can hear you now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I think my headphones just died. That's fine. So it seems like what you're getting into here is that just because, we have incomplete data, that when we do experiments in the lab, it's not these like exact, results, that it's a kind of band, and that, what we try to do is look for more variables. We try to, find the sources of the noise and try to exclude them. And, metrologists work on measurement to get it tighter and tighter and tighter. And, we try to minimize this. And that really, if we just knew more, we would see that determinism is true. The problem is that for that to be true, determinism has to be true, right? So this idea that like every fact is going to be kind of epistemically accessible, that that there's this kind of global epistemic tractability, right? Depends on determinism being true for that to be the result,
I
right?
don't know if it's like has to be absolutely true. I think that the evidence has to be robust enough for scientists, people who are peer reviewing, people who are working within the field, to consider the data noteworthy. Like, obviously, I recognize that like not all data will be 100% empirically like super accurate. I do recognize that like everybody's processing through perception, and we all make mistakes, and like, we're humans. So obviously I recognize that it's not perfect, and it contains mistakes, but I still think it's a relatively good system. Like, I do recognize that empiricism in general like has some pitfalls, but I do think that like obviously gravity works as gravity does. Like, I drop a spoon, it drops on the floor. Like, I don't think that that's going to change anytime soon. So like I'm still going to rely on my sense data.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not denying that. What I'm trying to get at is that, one, an indeterminist is not going to disagree with any of that.
Yeah.
Right. So we have this, I think there's a certain tendency, and not, and I'm not saying that you have this tendency, but there's this general tendency to think, well, if something like strict determinism isn't true, there's this kind of like tendency to think, well, it's either perfect order or total chaos, right? But that's not what an indeterminist is going to be committed to, right? What an indeterminist is going to be committed to is that there are no necessary laws, right? That there are no way things, that, generally B will follow, event B will follow event A. Maybe, to this the smallest decimal, right? But what the indeterminate says is open, that sometimes that relationship might not always hold, right? That it might almost always hold, but not always hold, right? And so you're absolutely right, but that's exactly to the point of the indeterminist, right? Which is we work with, our knowledge is vague, uh, ambiguity abounds, and we do just fine. That to do science, to live our lives, we do not need necessary event relationships. We just need stable ones, right?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's a totally a fair point. I have definitely considered the pitfalls of, especially when you get into quantum physics, obviously, like I do recognize that we don't know everything and we may not. The other thing is that we are creatures that may not be um capable of understanding it. I really hope that's not the case, because I like to think that one day I will have access to all the answers in the universe. I know that's not the case, and it probably never will be for humankind, but I I think it's cool to think about.
Yeah. Well, one issue, and I didn't write this argument down, but the one issue is that even if determinism is true, our we're not going to be able to know everything, because there are, and this especially shows up in chaotic systems, um, the the precision that you would need and the computational power for all its inputs that you would require, basically perfect information and infinite compute power, which two things we would never have. Um,
Mm. But it is cool to think about.
sure. And so one issue with determinism is that by its own lights, right, we're never going to be able to tell the difference between determinism and indeterminism, right? That
I mean, sometimes I do think that, like, especially in the case of like the Valerian model, that they could work together. Like, obviously, I think it'd be cool to maybe do some more work, like combining them, or like I'd like to read some more contemporary stuff where like people, I don't know, attempt to blend them together rather than keep them as separate terms. But obviously, like I feel like there are potential problems with that.
sure. One thing to think about is that the way that we've defined determinism, right, is determinism is at the very farthest end of a spectrum, right?
Mm.
It's absolute regularity. It's absolute stability, right? Unbreakable. But on there's a spectrum. So it's at the end of a spectrum. And as soon as you leave that furthest possible end of this, that at least within the world, right, of this absolute regularity. You move to a world of extremely high regularity, right? Now, part of the thing about indeterminism, though, is that different things. So indeterminism is going to allow degrees, right? So some systems might be like nigh deterministic, just barely short of determinism, where other systems might be more open, right?
Mm.
And so I'm going to say that is actually a theoretical advantage, right? Because we have a more flexible theory that's going to allow us to assign different levels of indeterminacy to different systems. Okay.
All right.
That gives us more possible models.
Have we fleshed out all the semantics? I mean, the timer's up.
Oh, yeah. We can move on to the next section.
Okay, that sounds good. You guys have 6-minute openers, starting with the affirmative.
Okay.
Wait,
I think we're just doing another section.
Yeah, we're just doing.
They're on section 2.
Yeah, we just moved to the next section.
Hey, where the hell you been, bro? What the heck?
Oh, yo, my fault. Oh shit! If I cross examination, got it.
Oh, okay, can I, since this is already,
Yeah, it's
okay,
14 minutes. You got it.
it's the end of the night and I have to be on
Okay,
it.
yeah. I forgot.
What, Coco,
It's a weird format. It's not the same format as we.
Yeah, and Coco, what am I
section
supposed
2,
to
got
be,
it.
what am I supposed to be judging?
Hold on, ISO. Don't talk. Just let them discuss.
Okay,
I just wanna
we
know
got
so I
it.
can
Okay.
have-
Wait,
So-
actually, for this one, are we gonna need judges or
Yeah,
like?
because it doesn't seem like we're really weighing anything here.
I actually
quite a bit.
actually want to tag in Mitch because he's actually way more competent on this topic than I could ever be.
Yeah, I mean, I
I think
can,
Mitch would be a
We'd
good.
love to talk to him. He's
yeah,
he's a great
Mitch is
talker.
really smart and.
Oh my god, this is it's a weird format for me. I'm not used to this shit. I'm just saying. Okay, I got it. So,
I'm loving the discussion, right? But I'm like, I can't, I don't know if they're arguing the prompt or they're arguing a different prompt.
no, they are. They're arguing the prompt. Honestly, they are.
Yeah. So yeah. So Mitch, I'll tag you in so you can come up for me.
Wait, to judge?
Judge, he's been listening this whole time. So
Okay, I mean, Mitch, you want to judge or?
yeah, he said he would.
Okay, fine. That's fine. It's fine.
Uh,
Okay, where's he at? I don't see him. I see him requesting, but I don't see him on the request box. It's weird. Fuck me. Okay, all right. Let me just try to request him up. Oh shit! No.
Did we get him?
Now he's there. Yeah, he's good.
But yeah, welcome, Mitch.
Okay, I think we're gonna drop you. Thank you. All right. So, all right. We're at section 2, 14 minutes, and it's like back and forth. Like it doesn't matter who it is, right? It's not like crossing.
Yeah, we're just talking.
I got you. It's like back and forth type open discussion. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
Only discussing the material.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Hold on. Sorry. All right, let me know when you guys say your first word.
Okay. Jordan, do you want to move on to even if indeterminism is true, does it support the inability of being otherwise?
Right.
Let's move on to that.
Yeah. So and this is, I think, going to be a little bit more. This is going to be more speculative, right? I think there's some reasons to think so, but I don't think that this is going to be something that's in any way, shape, or form definite. So one thing is that if the ontic vagueness or ontic indeterminacy of world states of objects is the case, then that's going to even to affect the determinacy of something like classical mechanics. Okay, because classical mechanics, at least on my understanding, depends on phase space, which is done in rational numbers. One kind of scientific argument, and let me qualify that, like, I'm not in a strong position to defend this, but I think it's worth talking about. One argument is that due to Bekenstein's, I believe it is, um, bound, there are, and what Bekenstein's bound is basically that you cannot have infinite information in a finite space. And that because of that, you no longer can move, because that what that means then is that in a finite space, there is that state is indeterminate, right? That space is indeterminate. And because it's the state itself is indeterminate, when you apply the even the classical laws, there are multiple solutions. And this is known as the infinite precision problem. So I don't know, but what do you make of that?
Yeah, when I read it, honestly, it was the first time I had really, I guess, thought about that idea. I don't know how practical it is in, like, I don't know, application with like how we function with our current uh like scientific method, but I obviously recognize that, like, it's interesting. I just don't know how much it affects like current sense data, or like if you were to consider determinism instead of indeterminism. I feel like that sort of speculative idea, I don't know, I just feel like it's not really grounded in much. And so I would just be like, it's not really for
Okay.
me.
Well, so one thing that is also going to create an issue, at least on my understanding, is the Planck length, right? Which is the shortest possible length, where length still does something like make sense on my understanding. And that's going to also disturb the kind of infinite precision. My understanding is there are alternative models
Mhm.
that you can replace the phase space with finite numbers, but that is going to result in this kind of indeterminacy on my understanding.
Right.
Now, I think, but so depending on how that's worked out, I think that by itself is a good reason to think that that kind of indeterminacy would allow for us to do otherwise, given that it affects even. My understanding too is that there are reasons to think that there are certain kinds of indeterminacy in the brain that some people have argued, not necessarily making this argument myself, that some people have argued that even in a place like the brain, that it is a dynamic system, a chaotic system, and so that even small indeterminacies at the quantum level can be amplified. So again, that's not, and I think even if that holds true, I don't think that that's going to be definitive.
Yeah.
And it certainly doesn't say anything about whether we have free will.
No,
This has nothing to
certainly
do with
not.
whether we
Yeah.
have free will. That's
Yeah.
a separate question.
That is the last thing that we'll get to with
Right.
But I guess I had a couple questions for you. Are you like a Cartesian in your model? Do you think your body is determined and your mind is what's free?
No, I think it's all
Okay.
indeterminate, all of it.
Okay,
Now,
interesting.
I think some things are very stable, right? So again, when we talk, if we think about that continuum, right, where determinism is at this absolute end, right?
Mhm.
The my
And what of self-determination? Like perception, habit, and precept. Like, how do you feel about those when they're faced against indeterminism?
I think I'm agnostic about libertarian free will.
Okay.
But actually, well, I'm going to save some of what I'm going to want to say
For free will.
about this until that next section.
Sure. That's totally fair. And what do you think about intersubjectivity and how that may affect? I guess I should wait for it for potential freedom. That's fine. Yeah, I think likely we can move on to the last section. I'm trying to think if I have anything else that doesn't have to do with moral culpability or freedom, but I feel like most of our questions around the theory that I had have been answered for the most part. Maybe I guess lived experience, and like the body, its active engagement with the world. Like,
Mhm.
what's the lived experience of the body, and what is that way of being slash interacting with the world? What is that doing to like potential agency, I suppose?
Well, I mean, in my view, at least, agency is going to be even a third distinct question. So I would separate agency from free will,
Yeah,
right?
that's why I decided it was fair enough to ask now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think agency can be characterized as being able to learn from and act on what you learn with respect to your environment, right? The way that you have a kind of self-awareness in how you kind of, as the embodied cognitivists say, you couple with different aspects of your your environment.
Mm.
Um, that's something in that ballpark is what I would count as agency. But to be fair, I don't have a very well developed account of agency.
Yeah, I mean, I think agency is tied to will, but I do understand that it can be distinct for some people, which is why I wanted to ask, just because it's always interesting to know.
Mhm.
For me, I think they're 100% linked. Um, Actually, I am wondering. I have a little question for you that is specifically just about agency. So,
Okay.
if I am aware that my influence over others is in
Uh-huh.
fact stimuli that others react to, and they
Yeah.
change their behavior partly or wholly due to my influence, am I participating in agency of some kind?
I would say so.
I've always been curious about that just because, like, technically you're prompting that other person to make a choice, but like you don't actively make a choice. But like, obviously, I also recognize that, like, I don't know, maybe you were always going to prompt them to make that choice under the laws of determinism. Or how much choice do I really have no matter what? Maybe I was always going to participate in that habit. Maybe I was always going to ask them, or maybe not. I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting one for you to ponder.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I I think there's at least a case to be made. Well, one, I think agency by its very nature is social. I don't think
But say
maybe not you couldn't be an agent without, but that your agency is strengthened through sociality.
that's what I would. Okay. The other day, I discussed this with a couple different friends because I also asked them the question. They both had different interpretations. Juster was similar to yours,
Yeah.
where he thought the potential of having all of these individuals who are prompting choice in others, they are the stimuli for others, right?
Mhm.
That is creating this web of what would be potentially a lot of agency. Or is it like not doing that? Is it actually like convoluting it? Is it making it more murky? Is it less agency because there's so many connections and webs? I don't know.
It
Especially within a
depends.
deterministic framework, if you're to consider it, I mean, I don't know. I see like very little option for choice still, but I still love the idea of analyzing the question. I don't know.
Well, I think, and this is something I would put as an addendum to what I was saying about agency before, is that part of agency is being able to modify your environment, right? I think that's an important part of, well, I think it's kind of was implicit in what I was saying, but I think it's worth making explicit that you can change things, right? You can change, the layout of your house. You can, pick up, you know, do recycling, pick up the street, right? You can take a dirty street and turn it into a clean street. Um, you can build things, you can, uh, landscape, etc., right? And that's just you as an individual. Now, we, our agency is limited by what we can influence, but when we act in a group, and especially if we're organized in the right way, um, you know, every um, spectacular thing that human beings have ever done have been done through a kind of group agency, right? The
Mm,
pyramids, going to the moon, et cetera, et
starting to
cetera,
sound like Sarcha. Careful.
right?
You
Um,
might dip your toe right into absolute freedom.
well, I would, yeah, I kind of think his point to be a little bit different, but yeah.
Uh, but yeah, this last section that we're gonna move into, we're gonna be focusing on free will, but we're also gonna be focusing on like intersubjectivity, how that affects freedom, but also how that affects human invention. Um, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about maybe epiphenomeny, stuff like that. So
Okay.
should be a fun third section. So yeah, you can start whenever you want if you want
Yeah, we'll
to.
start whenever you say your first word. Go ahead.
Go ahead. See.
Oh, sure, I can start. Um, within intersubjectivity and freedom. So our freedom is constrained by others. I am an object. The other is an object. We both interact,
Mm.
and thus I am a person with consciousness. Um, what do you think this is doing to the potential for freedom? Because you're in this very small box, right? Where the other has taught me everything that I know, and I have taught the other everything they know. And of course, we have all this outside precept. A chair is a chair long before you're born. English is English long before you're born. But outside of that, when your parents teach you and you teach your friends and they teach whatever, the web is giant. Um, what is this doing to potential freedom? Because I think it's narrowing it. Like I don't even see room for choice or agency when we recognize that the other teaches us and we teach the other, and without them we are feral, like
Yeah,
feral
except,
children who don't know anything and don't go past that border, that boundary.
but when you, for example, learn mathematics, okay? Or let's say you learn a lot about engineering. After you've learned about engineering, can you do more or less? Are there more
Clearly
things
more.
that you can do or less things that you can do?
Yes, and I recognize that as a step, and it's interesting because obviously we have access to more information right now. But
Mm-hmm.
say we put ourselves back to Homo habilis, they have way less access to info. Like, you're just two creatures who are really making new inventions, a lot of new inventions for the first time. And I do always wonder, like, I guess what's prompting, especially with like a lack of information. Like, nowadays it makes sense because there's so much access to information. I build off of this, and that's built off of a billion philosophers before me. But when you're the first to do something, or you're like, I'm wondering how that leap occurs when I'm considering the intersubjectivity of how we become conscious beings. I'm like, where am I? How is that occurring with
I
lack of access to info?
Yeah, I think it's a guess, but it's not just any guess. It's a guess. It's a I don't want to say don't want to say that. It's something more than an educated guess, but it is also an educated guess, right? It's an abduction, right? So
Yeah.
you're putting forward something that you're explaining. By putting this forward, you're saying, well, if A is true, then this surprising fact S would be a matter of course, right?
Mhm.
Now, not uh, every abduction is, of course, going to hold out, right? In fact, most of them aren't. But it is interesting that human beings can typically, um, because if you think about all the possible abductions you could make, we tend to work things out and come down to something relatively tight in a finite amount of time, right? Um,
Mm.
that I think there's a case to be made that there's a kind of, especially once you become very familiar with the subject, um, but maybe even better if you're familiar with multiple subjects, is that within your expertise, you can make this, even though there's who knows how many options available to you, you can abduce and work things out pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm thinking about that, and I'm wondering, like, is it just a building blocks of like a relative rationalization? But I'm also just thinking of how little tool access we had at a certain point in history and how far that's come. Like, obviously leaps and bounds. And then of course we have the issue with epiphenomenon, where I would expect within a system, if I were to plug in A, I get B. But I don't always expect it to happen so many times. And in fact, I think it's always a little strange when it happens multiple times, especially for things that I feel like are very trivial. Like, for example, like hairbrushes. Like, obviously plenty of different societies didn't have hairbrushes and had different forms of having their hair or styling their hair. But then you have a lot of different cultures who create a hairbrush to brush their hair. And I always wondered why that would be. I mean, it seems like such a bizarre item for it to be created without influence by the other, by so many different populations, instead of just not brushing their hair, right?
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a need that a lot of people face. But it is wild. But there's also like Leibniz and Newton both inventing calculus, although my understanding is somewhat different variations, but calculus nonetheless. Charles Sanders Peirce and Gottlieb Frege both independently developed uh, predicate calculus, that is, or sometimes known as quantificational logic. Um, I think they're not exactly the same thing, but they're often used interchangeably. Um, there's a lot of wild things like that. There's a lot of like inventions and ideas that emerge independently.
Yeah,
Um,
and aren't
right,
absolutely necessary. They're just done out of, I don't know, passion for math or a
sure.
want to brush your hair for some reason or another. Um, and it is interesting to think about what prompted those decisions. And like, obviously, I would argue that it's all causality. I just don't always know if I have like the best explanation at all times for the cause of that um, item or object or phenomenon or whatever it is. Um, and obviously, I will recognize as like, I think that's a small loophole in determinism. I think it's like, I don't really know what to do with it. The fact that we can't pinpoint all of the causes. I mean, I don't think that the theory like loses a lot of points for that because obviously you can't do something like that. Like it would be super difficult to prove something like that scientifically. But still, I don't know. I think it's something to poke a small hole in determinism potentially, or at least for me it is.
I see.
Anyway, do you have any further questions about free will in
Well, I believe
reference to
you had
determinism?
questions you wanted answered.
I have a couple others, but I wanted to give you an opportunity because
Go ahead.
I already asked the intersective one, I'm so sorry, intersubjective one and stuff like that.
Right.
But yes, I can move on to more stuff. So
Sure.
if it's truly random indeterminism, um, how do you deal with uh, free will and culpability in your system? Do you think that um, there's moral culpability with randomness, and do you think there's free will within your system?
Well, I think one thing that I think is worth mentioning is that I think the, the word random, I think, already kind of uh, presses things in a certain direction, right? I think that one thing that we don't recognize is that indeterministic event relationships, um, like I said earlier, they come in degrees. But my view is actually that at least with a strong sense of moral responsibility, the kind of what I call legal responsibility or retributive responsibility, the kind of responsibility that would ground, retributive punishment. Okay. Um,
Mm.
I think that even if libertarian, like there's like a knockdown account of libertarian free will, like the metaphysical account, that even that would not ground free will. And I'll tell you why. The issue is going to be that I'll tell you why. The issue is going to be that any account of libertarian free will, even if it's true, like we know it for a fact, um, is going to have problems with three things. One, it's going to have problems with determining exactly who has free will. Because there's nothing about free will that says if it's true, people automatically have it, right? There's all sorts of reasons to think that some people might not meet the conditions, right? The other problem is it's going to have is determining when, and by determining, I mean in an epistemic sense, just to be clear, it's going to have a problem determining when a particular choice or set of choices or what have you are free. And finally, it's going to have a problem determining the degree, because I think one thing that any account of free will is going to have to account for is degrees of free will. I think this is pretty obvious. Like the way that we treat a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 20-year-old, and maybe even 25, 30, 35, right? At each of those stages is that when they do certain things, we tend to think that they're more or less responsible, right? Just in our kind of, as a matter of our practices, right? Setting aside whether
In a pragmatic sense, we
Yeah.
hold them morally responsible, regardless of whether that agent holds moral responsibility. Sure.
Yeah, right. And in different degrees. Like if a 5-year-old slaps you in the face, you're gonna be mad, but you're gonna be like, it's a 5-year-old, right? Well, at least I hope that's one's response.
Yeah.
If a 15-year-old or if a 10-year-old slaps you in the face, you're gonna respond differently. It might not be the same as if a 15-year-old does, right? But intuitively, there's this kind of degreedness, right? And the issue for any account of robust moral responsibility is that if the action, we can't determine to what extent you are free, how can we offer a proportional punishment?
Which is also my issue with it, obviously, that you can't really assign moral culpability within the system, but it still functions as if it's free will in a capacity. And I feel like I'm not sure, I guess, how to go about that. I mean, I guess you just accept it as it is, I suppose. You just say, well, you can't know for sure, so it is what it is. Yeah.
No, I think you get rid of prison as an institution.
Yeah, I mean,
think
I
that's what you
agree
do.
with that 100%. We should have rehabilitation centers. We are both on the same page there. Yeah, I just think that you change the stimuli, perhaps you'll change the behavior within a deterministic system, whereas you believe there's more potential for freedom to interact within the deterministic system to change that stimuli. Sure.
But
Yeah.
I'll point out that we don't need a deterministic system to do that, right? That human beings are, I think a good way to think about my version of indeterminism, I call habitualism, right? That what I'm interested in, again, is getting rid of this law like talk and this necessity type talk, because I think it pumps the wrong intuitions. I think we should be doing something that's much more local, much more grounded, that we should use a different model, right? Because law just puts certain ideas in your head, I think, right? And I'm not saying everybody thinks that way, but I'm saying it's I think it creates the disposition, right?
Okay, guys, the time's up.
Okay, cool.
Can you finish the last sentence, though? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I'll just say that we should instead think in terms of habits. Habits are stable. If anybody's ever smoked, they know how tough it is to stop smoking. Habits are stable, consistent things in our lives, right? And I would say that we're constituted by habits. And in constituted those habits, they're still open. You can break a habit, but the habit's exactly the kind of thing that will invoke stability without closing off the future and engaging in this necessity law talk type stuff. So
okay, thank you, I appreciate it. All right, so now we're on to closers. The closer starts off with the affirmative first. They got 5 minute, right? That's what we're agreed on. Okay, so 5 minute closers. Starting with the affirmative. We'll start whenever you say your first word. Go ahead.
Oh, so me first. Okay. Can I get the screen again?
The screen is. Does indeterminism have? You.
No,
Okay. Sorry.
yeah,
I know what you meant. I know what you meant.
yeah.
I thought you meant the prompt for a second, but yeah, I got you.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, got you. Okay. Right.
Okay. So I'm just going to run real quick, okay, through these arguments. This is going to be the fast and dirty version, okay? So ultimately, I think that determinism in entailing ontic crispness and entailing nomological necessity has a heavier burden, right? Of being forced to make claims that are supposed to hold indefinitely into the future holds a higher epistemic claim. But in particular, the issue with determinism is that you have to solve the problem of induction in a relatively strong way. And for those who don't know, the problem of induction is simply that to justify induction, right, you cannot simply look at what we call the constant conjunction. We see event type A happen and event type B, and we just see those in conjunction. We see them together. But what we don't see, and we don't in our observation, we see nothing that would guarantee that they will hold forever into the future. And on the other side, there's nothing illogical. If I say that the Earth will stop spinning at 5 a.m., there's no contradiction entailed by that claim. Okay. The issue for the determinists relative to the indeterminists is that they have to show not just that we can justify believing in regularities with respect to the universe, but that we have to believe in absolute regularity. And that by its nature has a higher burden. The other issue is that the determinism with its initial conditions, because even C admitted that that those initial conditions are indeterministically generated. But the other option is that they themselves are determined. I think that option leads to a kind of necessitarianism. So determinism entails either indeterminism or necessitarianism. And on either case, there's a problem. With the indeterminism, the question is, so there is indeterminism, it's just all at the beginning. And I think a reasonable question is, why? I think the determinist owes us an account. Two, if the other horn, necessitarianism, the issue there is we face modal collapse. Our counterfactual practices become unjustified. We can't talk about the way things could have, we can't talk about counterfactuals, right? Where determinism, and the whole point of determinism is it's supposed to save our counterfactual practices, right? Because we could always say, well, the initial conditions could have been different. But if necessitarianism is true, they couldn't have been different. They have to be the way they are. And I can reasonably ask, well, why do they have to be this way? What about the world is such that things have to be this way? I think there are some answers to that, but I do think they come with some pretty big costs. That's my general set of arguments. I have a few more, but that's my main ones. I will see the rest of my time to see.
Thank you for that. And then we move on to our last closer for the night. C, go ahead. Do you want the big screen or do you want me to just put the prompt?
Nah, the little screens. Chill.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. We'll give you 5 minutes. And we'll start the timer whenever you say your first word.
Okay. Honestly, I had something else prepared, but I feel more inclined to just go with the flow and respond on the spot to what Jordan is really getting at. Um, and I do agree, and I also disagree with uh, some of your sentiments.
Okay.
I do agree that obviously in this particular case, since we've chosen hard determinism as the definition for determinism, it's going to have a higher proof of burden because we've narrowed the scope so much. So, uh, yes, I do think that in this case, the burden shifts more onto determinism, especially hard determinism in this case. If I broadened my scope to include more of determinism and the umbrella that that encompasses, then I think that it would be in a different spot, like the way that we engage with the argument. But as far as like the current discourse, yes, like full hard determinism does have those pitfalls, and it always will because of things like quantum physics and the nature of the universe being eternal, things like that uh, we don't really fully have answers to. And of course, I have to recognize them. But I still think that determinism as a model in general, for the information that we have within the scientific community, our understanding of the way that we interact as human beings, I think it's important to recognize causality, to recognize the importance of precept and the conditions with how they affect the way that we move through the world and take up habits and the way that we're affected with perception. All of those things are going to be encompassed within determinism, and they're going to have an effect on the person. I feel like indeterminism, it sometimes is going to miss out on the intersectionalities of life and the complications that come along with a deterministic system. But I do think that it was a lovely debate, or not really a debate,
Critical
discourse
discussion.
between two friends. Um, and I really enjoyed it. I hope the crowd wasn't too bored, but I had a really good time.
Me too.
Anyway, I'm gonna secede my time, and that's it.
All right, thank you for that. It was a good debate. And now we get to the judges. Whoever wants to start first, go ahead. You guys can start. Whoever, doesn't matter who. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
yeah.
Mitch.
Keep it kind of short and sweet. So well done both. I think Jordan won all rounds. Just as an overview, there were arguments given for indeterminism in each round. Whether it be kind of the epistemic burden that determinists have, claiming that all events in the universe, are necessitated. All the kind of the cool argument about the kind of the phase space, and like if you have like infinite precision under determinism, you'll never be able to like specify that. That was a cool argument. So yeah, I'd give it to Jordan. I would maybe ask something like how comes free will came up at all?
I think there might have been some miscommunication, and that's okay. That happens.
Always going to discuss free will
Right.
for the last section, so I
Yeah.
figured I may as well just bring it up in the opening so that people have maybe understood like where we were going to conclude with. That's sort of
Okay.
what I was thinking.
I gotcha.
Right. Well,
All right.
well done both. Well done.
All right, next judge. Give your opinion, and then give your judgment. Go ahead. Either one, ISO or Cage, doesn't matter.
Yeah, there was a lot that I had to write down here, and my notes are all filled. But I'll keep it pretty short because I'm not interested in rehashing every single thing. I was weirded out by a couple of things here, which was during the cross. I believe it was C that mentioned if determinism. No, sorry, I think it was Jordan that mentioned if determinism is true, is the principle of alternative possibilities true? Which one sort of plausibly explains it, which wasn't touched on further than that. It's kind of left there.
Sure.
The other thing I wanted to say that really seemed to slide it in favor of Jordan for me was when C gave her sort of objections to indeterminism. When Jordan gave his argument for indeterminism, and C responded that if it's expected that if we have global epistemic trackability, if and only if determinism is true, and if determinism is true, the inverse, material implication both ways. She sort of agreed that our system isn't perfect, but it's well ordered enough such that the sense data is reliable, which I suppose is all right if you're limiting that to your epistemic commitments, but the type of thing that the determinist in the way that we've defined it wants to say is that the system is perfect, where A entails B necessarily. Speaking of which, this is the last thing here. Jordan responded to that with, this is compatible with indeterminism. The disjunction between perfect order and chaos is false. He mentioned that indeterminism is simply committed to there being no necessary laws where the modality is nomological or logical. The indeterminist is just committed to saying if B is causally explained by A, B does not always or necessarily obtain, whether that's in every possible world with respect to logical determinists or a nomological specific world in world A or world B or something like that. And that's when I took it that his position motivated me to accept that over the inverse. So that's it.
So is that Jordan? Jordan got 2?
Yeah, I take it Jordan motivated his position better. So.
Gotcha. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so ISO, go ahead. Last judgment, go ahead. ISO, you there?
We put him to sleep.
I never.
Bro, there's no way ISO fell asleep, bro.
I never
invite him to
knock him out.
Cage, can I
ISO.
learn some philosophy? Cage, can you send me some papers? I'm never doing it. You're never living this down, Emmanuel. If you can hear me, I'm never letting you forget this.
Bro, there's no way right now you fell asleep, bro. There's no way.
Do you know how many lectures
We don't
I
have to be sorry.
would have gotten ridiculed if I fell asleep in lecture? Are you kidding? People would have stuffed stuff in my ears.
Yo, bro, ISO, for real though, you fell asleep on the live right now as the last voter?
He was in the chat talking for so long. Oh my God.
Yo, ISO, we're gonna roast you tomorrow. I'm telling you, we're gonna cook the shit out of you if you don't actually wake up right now, bro.
This is terrible.
I'm gonna clip all of this, ISO. We're gonna just make fun of you the whole day tomorrow. It's gonna be the whole day. We're gonna make it a topic. We're gonna make it a prompt, bro.
We didn't even. Oh my God, we didn't even get into like just motivation.
Is AR dragging someone for falling asleep on the live?
I'm not. Hold up. When I fall asleep on a live, right? I'm not useful in any way. ISO is dependent on right now. He's literally a judge.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I also recognize that Jordan won. I think it was hard for me to take on the hard determinist position. It's always a lot of burden in any kind of debate, I think, to take on the hard determinist position. But I thought it was fun anyway to do it.
I have a question for Jordan. If if we could move to questions since ISO doesn't want to be awake.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm okay with that.
Jordan, is there room for? So, do you take stable systems to be similar to deterministic systems?
Well, again, so like when I talked about the continuum, right? So some systems, right, might be extremely, extremely stable, right? Such that there's
Hold on just for a
almost
second. Anybody who's a mod, try to bring people up, kick people down. I'm about to go out. All right, man. Enjoy your night.
all right. Thanks.
Just leave.
Seems
I'm not
like
leaving.
Question for you,
Again,
Jordan. I have a
wait,
question for you, Jordan.
wait. I'm not leaving. I'm still listening to everybody. Okay, I'm here still.
okay. All right.
So are stable systems similar to determined systems?
Well, again, I think there's a continuum, right? And some of those systems, and maybe, I can't rule out that the whole world is extremely stable, such that, like I said earlier.
But you would say there are some stable systems within your indeterministic framework, right?
Yeah, there's
And I'm wondering if those are similar to determined systems within an indeterministic system, and if that's true, is that deriving a contradiction?
No, because again, think about it in terms of this, right? There's degrees, right? There's a continuum of irregularity, right? So on one end is a complete absence of regularity. It just pure, it's like we can't even think about it, right? Because it would be so chaotic, right? Absolute irregularity. On the other end, absolute regularity. Never fails, must happen, necessary, right? But in the middle, there's degrees of regularity. Now, some of those systems might be extremely regular, right? But the important thing is that an indeterminist doesn't have to commit to it being absolute regular, right? They can say, look, there are no, the laws don't, or, even if we're going to accept laws, which the laws don't have to be pushy, right? They don't have to make things happen, right? We could just we could be Humeans and describe just the regularity, right? Just what they call a best systems approach. That's fine. And maybe the most, the best system is a deterministic law is the best descriptor. But just because it's the best descriptor doesn't mean the thing that it's describing is in fact deterministic in this strong metaphysical sense, right? Because a best system could say, look, even if there was an exception to this, like if we somehow could look at the whole history of our world and we saw, well, there is actually an exception to this law here. There was a time when the outcome didn't follow the law. It still might be the best descriptor because there's only one exception, right? So all that the indeterminist is saying is that it doesn't have to happen that way. The indeterminist is okay with saying it will, right? But there's a difference between saying it will and it has to.
Hell yeah.
Hi, I'm Missy. All of this went over my head. Well, most of it did, but I had a question for Jordan.
Okay.
Does randomness exist?
Well, what indeterminacy entails is that when things happen, right, that there are different possibilities that might come out of that. Now, the differences might be incredibly small, right? It might be the tiniest bit of fuzz, so to speak, right? That, you can think about it. You can think about it as if I'm flipping a quarter, like I could get it to flip to heads every time, right? But there might be small variations of exactly how it lands, how it bounces, you know, where,
So
you
so
know,
I'm hearing yes.
yeah.
I just for me the idea of true randomness of something being random seems nonsensical, and I don't know how else to put that. Um, like I like the idea of me rolling dice and it not being what it is going to be, just it's very hard for me to grasp, if that makes sense. And maybe this is just because I'm a layman and I really don't understand the conversation as well as y'all do.
Well, let me
Um,
ask you this. So let's take away the theoretical for a minute. Okay.
okay,
In your life, right?
sure.
In your, in your lived experience, when you're doing things, when you're, um, you know, cooking or something, I don't, or, when you game or, right? You do
Yeah.
things all the time that when you do it, the result isn't always the same. It might be, it's maybe within some bounds or something, right? Like it's some kind of cloud of different possibilities, but there's like, you
Okay,
could
I need to
broadly,
put this into a way that I can understand. Because
okay,
I am not of the understanding currently.
okay, that's fine. I appreciate you stopping me. Um, so
I'm
when
good
you,
at that.
yeah, so anytime like, okay,
I love dice and I love D&D. If you can tie it into that,
sure.
perfect.
When you
So like
throw
the
the
idea of
dice,
like when I throw the dice, gravity is affecting it, my hand is
yeah,
affecting it,
sure
the
is.
air resistance,
Agreed.
even things like sound waves, right? All of these things which can be measured, right? So I'm confused on how those dice could land in any other way than is determined by their by physics.
Right. So what this, what indeterminism is committed to is that the if we're going to use law talk, which I think that we shouldn't, but for right now, so the physical laws, right? The laws of
Okay.
physics,
Yeah.
that they themselves, right? So for example, maybe, and I'm not saying this is the case, I'm just saying maybe it works like
Maybe.
this, right?
Yeah.
So maybe with a little fluctuation in the air, there's like, there's a, when you release the dice, right? Maybe there's a little fluctuation somewhere in there, right?
I exhale instead of inhale.
Because of something, some weird, some
Yeah.
indeterministic event, right? Because part of what I'm saying is that part of what's happening is that all the things you're talking about, yeah, they're the case, but there's no reason to think that they are in the case in a way that is, number one, uh, crisp and clean, and like that they are an exact, super precise state of being, right? That there might be a little bit of fuzz to how they are, to their state, right?
And so I guess my misunderstanding was,
Hmm.
I think, in the understanding of indeterminism itself.
Right,
I mean, it's just a very hard concept to grasp. And I've even said this, like, it sounds oxymoronic, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
right.
Like,
I
it
understand.
just, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
indeterminism, it's hard for me to understand. And so it's
Let me
something
let
that
me let
I'm
me
still
try one
thinking,
more thing. Let me try one more
but
thing.
thank you.
So you've got habits, right?
Yee. I
Some of them
like,
are good, some of
I
them are
have,
bad,
yes, but I'm like very about my habits.
right?
Yeah.
Now, your habits are pretty stable features of your life. It's hard. I mean, at least in my experience, maybe yours is different. It's real hard to start them, to kind of gain a
Yes.
habit,
I would,
and
yes.
it's hard to break them, right?
Yeah.
But habits are the kinds of things, right, that we don't think of as like, at least any single habit, as saying think about a smoker. And look, I'm not trying to bring free will into this. That's not what I'm doing here. I just
Nah,
want to
I
be
know what you mean. You're good.
very clear.
You're good.
But like, let's say you're a smoker, right? And you're
Okay.
trying to quit.
I was. So it's all good.
Right. Yeah. So you're trying to quit, and sometimes that habit wins out, and sometimes it doesn't. And you don't know, from what I've seen of people quitting smoking, and I've known quite a few. They don't always know exactly when it's going to hit them, right? When that habit's going to overpower. There's not this clear thing. So one way to think about it is that everything has habits. That the world is in fact composed of habits. Go ahead.
So our habits are still determined by our psychological states. So, like, am I misunderstanding that habits that you're saying habits are random in some way?
No, okay. I think you're so that kind of black and white, right? So like what I'm saying,
seeing it as a spectrum, as hard determinism on one end and indeterminism as the other end.
No, yeah, it's not that. Indeterminism is just anything that's not that far end determinism. Everything else is indeterminism. So what I'm saying is that habitualism is saying it's not all the way at the other end. It's somewhere like it's like 3/4 of the way towards determinism, let's say. I'm not committed to that, but
Okay. So it's allowing wiggle room for things like quantum mechanics and things like, logical inconsistencies that something like a hard determinist would have problems with. So it's less of, I guess I saw it as a very hard stance to take rather than, but thank you for clarifying that. I really do appreciate that.
Right.
And I will ask dumb questions to anyone at any time.
That was not at all a dumb question. I'm so glad that you asked it. Thank you for giving me the chance to clarify.
My pleasure, always. I actually would love to talk about indeterminism with both you and C more.
Yeah,
I would
we should
really
talk.
love
We'll talk
to
about
do
it
that.
sometime.
Yeah.
Cool. I have a question too, and it's probably falls on the same trend as like Sage and let's see, probably just maybe just rewording it in a different way that maybe fits my concept. Because it seems like when we're having this conversation, I'm trying to understand the difference here between like some. I don't know what is meant now when people say soft. At least from this conversation, I'm not know what is meant when people are saying soft determinism. I'm not sure what's also being meant when we're saying degrees of indeterminism.
Right.
Yeah.
So think of it like this. So one thing that happens, right, is you guys know how like how TikTok is full of like therapy speak, but like the therapy speak doesn't conform with the way that those where those phrases and stuff come from. They've mutated, right? So part of that is also happened with a lot of the as different people kind of take up the literature, there's these kind of mutations. So it's understandable why this is like super confusing, right? I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think it's a thing that makes communication harder, right? But to your question, so let me ask you this: do you think the future is open?
What do you mean by that?
Do you think there are different ways the world might turn out?
Yeah, yeah.
Then you're in this professional philosophy, professional analytic philosophy. In that sense of the word determinism and indeterminism, you're an indeterminist. That's what I was trying to show. If you wouldn't mind putting the video, my screen back up.
Sure. I'm not sure any mods are awake.
Oh shit. Are they all gone?
sleep.
You guys, if
we'll
you
just,
want, we can go to
let's
my
dip and go to the
Discord.
Discord. Yeah.
Yeah, y'all can come to my Discord. If you want to invite
Or
me,
mine.
I'll let you in.
All right.
But
I'm gonna peace out.
I'm pretty sure C, Jordan, and Mitch are already in there.
We
Sage
are.
is in there.
Yep.
send me
So,
I think I try to follow you, but if you can like just send me a Discord in my DMs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
send me. But
yeah.
Yeah,
so
I got you.
I'll
so
send
what
you
is
one too.
okay? But before you leave, what is self-determinism at that point? I guess because I always thought like that was some kind of degree of compatibility or something.
No, soft
Yeah,
determinism. There actually isn't a soft determinism. There's
there
hard
is.
determinism, there's hard incompatibilism, and there's illusionism. I guess there could be soft determinism, but I don't
Yeah,
think it's like a. I don't know if there are like a lot of published papers around it.
yeah. Soft determinism is just compatibilism.
Yeah, it's just compatibilism. That's what I always thought. Which is there also is soft compatibilism, if that's what you're referring to.
So the positions are like you've got libertarians who you've got incompatibilists, right? So incompatibilists come in traditionally two flavors, but really you could say three. An incompatibilist is somebody who either who believes free will and determinism are not compatible. So you've got libertarians, they're types of incompatibilists, and then you've also got hard determinists, right? They're types of incompatibilists. And then you flip that on the other side, you've got compatibilists, right? And then you've got like soft determinists who would say something like compatible is free will is compatible with determinism, and determinism might be true. And then I don't know if there is like a position where it's like it's compatible with determinism, but determinism is not true or something like that. But yeah, the soft determinist is a compatibilist,
Yeah.
and the hard
Yes. But what when we talk about degrees of freedom, what view holds this best?
So it's best not to use the hard soft distinction here, right? Hard and soft. So a hard determinist is just somebody who is not going to accept free will being compatible with determinism, and a soft determinist is just somebody who will. So that's better just left as compatibilist and incompatibilist, really, or a hard determinist. When it comes to like degrees of freedom, it's not really discussed, like different degrees of freedom. Yeah, it's more like in free will, it's more like where do you get your freedom from and what can you do with it, right? So it's like, do you get your freedom from there being some kind of leeway, right? Could there be like otherwise situations, whether you're a compatibilist or a libertarian? You can have like otherwise situations. And what do you do with it? Is it for like moral responsibility, or something else like ability or the ability to reason or something like that?
I understand. I guess I would imagine like the hard incompatibilists wouldn't have such a thing as degrees of freedom in their view, right? It wouldn't be something that makes sense. Um, so I mean, another hard. I mean, not the hard determinist. I mean, not the hard incompatibilist. The hard determinist will have such. I don't think they'll have. I'm not too sure. I don't believe they'll have such a thing as like a degree of freedom in their view. So maybe I wasn't well read on like sort of determinism and compatibilism in this sense where the way Jordan is describing it, it seems like indeterminism is just the ability to know that. Well, I need to read out for sure, but the ability to know that there could be different options somehow.
So this was about causal determinism, this debate, and it's the idea that for any event, right, that event was necessitated by the previous event plus the laws of nature.
Oh shit! I'm.
I'm gonna
I,
peace
I
out,
was.
guys. It's 1:08 here.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
gotta go.
Yeah, see.
You ought to go to bed.
Thanks, guys. It was so good.
Nah,
Bye.
Wow. I didn't know I was teacupping this whole time.
you talking this whole time? I didn't
Not the
realize.
whole time. But I thought Mitch was just muscling me out.
Muscling you out.
Yeah, because I would start talking, and then you would keep talking, and I'd just be like, all right, I guess.
Oh,
Muted, I think.
No, yeah, I was teacupping. I didn't, because I accidentally clicked on Bobby's profile. Shit. Woo! And remember, you can be, you know, both, because like now what we call a hard incompatibilist denies that that either determinacy or indeterminacy are going to be compatible with free will. But the yeah, but you can be an indeterminist and still deny free will. I I think you can be a libertarian and deny moral responsibility. So there's a lot of kind of different ways to um, approach this. So
Actually, that last one is good. I mean, also like I had a conversation with Mitch, and he sent me some papers to read up on. So my views on libertarian free will also has been modified since then. So,
mhm.
um, well, due because of those papers, that was
Right.
that article he sent. So I mean, yeah, it is. I think there's a lot to chew on, but I think it's just now because now I want to read more on it. I think my views are very intuitive. It's just to
Sure.
read up on what is actually called and what I'm actually trying to say when I speak.
Right.
So, but yeah, no,
And the
this
thing
was
is, the thing to remember is that other people are going to be confused by you, right? So when you use the academic terminology, people are going to be confused. So you expect yourself to have to explain yourself still. So it's kind of, but I'll at least understand what you're saying. Um, you know, Mitch will understand what you're saying. People who are kind of more familiar with the terminology will understand, and you'll be able to have more clear conversations because of that.
yeah. I mean, I think what's important to me that I kind of understand what I'm saying. I think and what I'm mean.
Hmm.
Like if I could conceptualize what these words mean when I say them, and actually
Yeah.
know, okay, this is what this are. I think that's important to me. And of course, I mean, I tend to talk pretty layman anyways, so I could probably
Sure.
hopefully I could communicate to people. But yeah,
Right.
this was actually very good. I actually do think you did a very good job in your position, and he's gone. um, well,
Yo,
everyone,
what's going on, everybody?
I jib. Not much.
I know I missed it.
You missed Everton.
Yeah, I know. I got busy with something, but I thought maybe I might come and meet something, but
Well,
guess not.
Jordan won. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he motivated his views. Actually, yeah, and honestly, thinking about it, he did motivate his views pretty well.
Mm-hmm. I see. Oh, hey,
Yeah,
there's that.
but everyone has left. I'm pretty sure Coco's asleep. Pretty sure AR's asleep.
Damn. I'm sorry, Jordan. You know, but like, I mean, in my defense, I was reading a really good book, so. Damn.
That's pretty good. I was doing some work while the debate was going, so it was pretty nice. This was probably the most interesting debate of the whole night. I mean, first one was pretty good. First one was
Mm-hmm.
life permitting universe.
I
It's
see.
pretty
I
good.
see.
I think this second one was just kind of like at least the one that came in with
Mm-hmm.
can you to motivate it like God if God is true or real.
I
I
mean,
think it
those are,
was.
like, in my opinion, the most boring ones, though. Like the whole, is God real? Yeah,
I mean, I've seen some better conversations, but yeah, this was definitely good. At least it gave me a lot to chew on, so I appreciate that. So
I get you. Yeah, at least you benefit from it, you know.
I did actually enjoyed this one. I actually did. I was doing some work, and it was good talk, and I enjoyed it.
Damn, bro. Well, yeah, damn.
Yeah,
Well, now I feel bad for missing, but hey.
yeah. All right, I'm gonna drop. You guys have a good night.
You as well, man.